Hello, welcome to the Common Geeking Program, a book club podcast where each episode, the three of us read up on a topic and then discuss and
just take it from the top. Take it from the top.
Wait, Ryan, why did you cut him off while he was speaking the intro perfectly and fluently?
Oh, no. I could tell he was stuck in a loop. We had to stop him, or that would have been the whole episode.
Well, this episode is about retcons, so perhaps poignant. We should redo the intro.
Everybody speak backwards.
I mean, that was a little racist, but...
Welcome to the Common Geeking Program, a book club podcast where each episode, the three of us read up on a topic and then discuss it from geeky, nerdy perspectives. Today, I am your host, Taeemul Chowdhury, or Chowder, whichever you prefer, and we will be discussing Dragon Ball Z, the legendary Super Saiyan, and Dragon Ball Super Broly.
Also known as one Dragon Ball movie that doesn't make sense, and one actually pretty good Dragon Ball movie.
Exactly. The theme is like retcons and rewrites and that succeed, that improve upon the original. I'm joined by two people, each of whom has selected a domain they think connects our topics and theme this week. They are...
Hello, it's me, Edward Ryan. Have you missed me? Anyways, today, now, well not today, this week. That's the right phraseology. This week, I'm going to be talking about John Carpenter's The Thing.
And I am Eddy Ryan's mirror twin from another dimension, Ryan Mossbarger. And I'm here to talk about Game of Thrones, specifically the first pilot, which pretty famously was retconned and changed from the original when test audiences thought it was a actual and literal and figurative turd burger.
So I wanted to point out one thing that I don't think we've talked about much since my return from the Shadow Realm. It's actually the advent of my mirror dimension twin, Ryan Mossbarger, that allowed me to return from the Shadow Realm.
You see, I've been playing a lot of Kingdom Hearts 3, so you could say I am the nobody to Eddy Ryan's Heartless. So
who's the original?
That's for the next game.
God fucking damn it!
According to Kingdom Hearts 3, original is just you, but like minus a tattoo or two. So
when Donald fucking dies, I was shocked.
Wait, are you being serious about that right now, or
no? I'm not. I haven't played Kingdom Hearts 3.
Because like in Kingdom Hearts 2, there's like a moment where Goofy dies for 5 seconds. Yes.
Well, yeah, like, you got to expect a certain amount of, like, actual, drama club style, like, literal, like, rug from out from underneath of you kind of moments in Kingdom Hearts 3, so.
All right. We're going to start by discussing our topic and domains before we openly discuss. Finally, we'll close with a competitive rating section to determine who best contributed, and whether today's topic is enjoyable.
There's a movie where there is a really strong baby and a really weak baby, and the weak baby is Goku for some reason, and he screams a lot, making the strong baby insane, and for whatever reason, Vegeta's dad is involved, and he's real not happy about it, and then the planet blows up because Frieza's a dick, and then for whatever reason, they bring Vegeta into it, sans dad, and then Goku gets real weird and gets a bunch of powers from some people, and then they fight, and then somehow or another they win, even though it's pretty much proven to a point where they shouldn't be able to win, when all Broly does is just come at them and destroy planets, and like does a weird football tackle on them instead of actually fighting them for like 30 fucking minutes. But yeah, that's the first one.
I mean, that's a pretty good description.
That's pretty good. Vegeta's dad wanted to execute baby Broly because he was so strong.
Okay, guys, can we start this from the top? I think
because he was the legendary Super Saiyan.
I'm sorry, I just had to get that off my chest.
And the failed execution left a weakness in Broly's abdomen area, which Goku
What?
exploited to win the fight. Learn your history, nerds.
Wait, is that what that was?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll come back to this. Anyways, so...
You definitely just made that up because I watched that movie for an hour and a half and there was no weakness in his abdominal region ever mentioned.
Listen, I watched this movie like 10 years ago. I think I remember it a little bit better.
No, they never mentioned any weakness ever.
I'm pretty sure that's what happened, but now I'm going to have to Google it because I did not rewatch the original for this podcast.
Showing the dedication that got you banished to the Shadow Realm.
Dragon Ball Z, the Legendary Super Saiyan, is a movie that was released in 1993. It takes place in the Dragon Ball Z universe. What a shocker! So the plot is pretty much what Ryan told you, but to be more cohesive, it is a movie about a character named Broly.
He's pretty brolic.
He's pretty brolic.
When I was younger, I thought that this film was where that term came from.
Is that not where that term came from?
I don't believe so.
I honestly thought that's where that term came from.
Holy shit! That is where the term came from.
Yes! Woo!
What? Wait, I lost you guys for a second in the crosstalk. What did the
because
word come from?
The word like brolic for like really strong? It did originate from Dragon Ball Z.
I've never heard of that before. Is that a real word?
We went on a weird etymology tangent, and I think you should continue with the summary.
Yes.
Well, that's part of the podcast now, considering that Colin tried to call... No, it was Jeff. Jeff tried to call me out last time I was on for using archetypical instead of archetypal.
Archetypal?
But archetypical is the word. It's actually the word. It's a correct word.
Is it another word that means the same thing, or is it different from archetypal?
It's a different word for the same thing. I just like the way it sounds.
Okay, I mean it does sound kind of cool.
Archetypal.
Sounds like a Dragon Ball Z villain. Speaking of which, so yeah, Goku and friends are just off doing their own thing when a spaceship just comes out of nowhere, and inside is a guy named Asparagus. Paragus for short.
I thought it. I didn't remember. I kind of remembered that his name was Paragus, and I typed some version of that into the group chat when we were talking about this episode, and it autocorrected to Paraguay, and I was like, that's close enough, and I just left it.
That explains that. Okay, anyways, and like Paragus comes up to Vegeta, the Prince of All Saiyans, and he's like, we've started a new Namek, apparently. Come over here. And Vegeta's like, hell yeah, and everyone else comes for some reason. And
yeah, it's real bad. It's the basic like Dragon Ball equivalent of a stranger walking up to a child with like shitty candy, and the kid being like, "Nah, you can. I'm down for the ride. Let's go." They
get there. They find out that the whole thing's run by slave labor, I guess, and then like they meet Paragus' son Broly. Someone says the word Kakarot. Broly loses his shit. They explain that like Paragus wants revenge on Vegeta for what his dad did, and Broly wants revenge on Kakarot for crying when he was a baby. It's dumb. Then they fight, and like Broly like fucking kicks everyone's ass.
Wait, real quick. I just wanna. All right, I think that because you like the new one so much, you're underselling some of the stuff from the original.
No, the original one was incomprehensible.
All right, I comprehend.
They begin with Krillin singing, and then for whatever reason, a random he's doing karaoke terribly, and everybody hates it, and they're all in a park for some reason, including Vegeta, who is like the least park person ever.
But he's unhappy about it.
Yeah, he's super unhappy.
So like that fits.
And a random spacecraft comes up, is like, oh, we've rebuilt everything, blah blah blah. It's dumb, and then it just gets dumber from there. Like it's awful.
All right, so here's the thing. So he was in an incubator next to Goku when they were babies. Goku cried a lot. This made baby Broly unhappy. But the reason it's a problem is because King Vegeta tried to murder that baby, and this traumatic event stunted his mental growth. So he really is fixated on that crying baby, and it fucked him up. But it's really that there was an attempted murder. That's really the issue.
In the words of Dragon Ball Z Abridged, that's so dumb, but he's so cool. But that's so dumb, but he's so cool.
If you hadn't told me that this the original one wasn't an unabridged, I would have assumed it was, because it self-referenced itself a little bit in a couple of places. Because, like, I want to say Master Roshi's like, he actually comes out and says, like, what is going on here? I don't understand what's happening.
I just real quick want to point out, I'm on Wikipedia. After much reluctance, Vegeta finally gives some of his energy, which he gives Goku enough power to resist Broly and punch him in exactly the same place where he was stabbed as a baby, causing Broly to bleed profusely and explode.
He was never stabbed as a baby.
By King Vegeta.
He wasn't stabbed. It never showed it in the one I watched. There was no stabbing of the kid.
He was stabbed. Maybe that was like a censored version or something, because there was a lot of censorship.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I guess I would censor out an adult man stabbing a baby, I suppose.
Not just an adult man, but an adult man with a goatee.
Yeah, just Vegeta, but with just the really bad, like, almost like painted on goatee.
Wait, have you guys watched Community?
I've seen the few episodes.
That's what I was kind of referencing.
You know the darkest timeline where they have, like, they're all evil, so they have the goatees? Vegeta's dad is just darkest timeline Vegeta.
This movie's interesting in that it's really bad, and, like, the character of Broly, when you think about it for more than, like, a few minutes, is also really bad. But, like, he's also so cool.
He's so cool.
He's so cool, and, like...
When he goes
how
Super
is he
Saiyan, his
so
hair is
cool?
green.
He looks so dumb.
Because he's, like, big and brolic, and he's, like, kicking everyone's ass, and he's, like, ah, and it's awesome, and it's
And
cool.
when he goes Super Saiyan, his hair is green.
Yeah.
Instead of just yellow.
And, like, those fights...
In the new series, they go blue, they go red, they go yellow. I'm sure green's somewhere on the color scale for.
No, it's not.
It's not, and it's a big problem. I mean, it's because green is too powerful. I mean, think about the strongest Dragon Ball Z characters: Piccolo, Goldo.
Oh, sure.
They're both green.
That's Cyberman that killed
the Cyberman. Yeah, he killed Yamcha. Who else has ever killed Yamcha?
It's not an easy thing to kill Yamcha.
No, he's very strong.
Moving on to Dragon Ball Super, Broly. Anybody else want to take this, or?
Well, I know I defended the original, but man, this one was so much better.
Yeah.
Like a lot.
Like there was a story, there was a plot, yeah, and there were like character arcs.
And it made sense from, like, multiple angles, not just like, hey, he screamed as a baby when I was a baby, so I wish to murder him and everyone in the entire galaxy.
Yeah, and also Broly was just a character. He was good. He was a good character on top of being a cool character.
Negatives of this one, Broly did not explode. Positives, he's now alive as a character, and maybe he'll come back in the show or something.
Yeah.
So this time, they changed the backstory a little. This time, King Vegeta doesn't like Broly because he's more powerful than baby Vegeta. And he's like, fuck that. My baby's the strongest baby. You banished. So he banishes him to some shitty planet with his dad, Paraguay.
Well, Paragus, like, when he learns that his son has been sent to this shitty planet, he's like, why? Broly's so strong! And, like, he, like, hijacks the ship and, like, goes to that planet, but, like, ends up crash landing and is stuck there with Broly. So, you know, they spend many years on that planet. And, like, they also, like,
he found out some way to give him a shock collar? That was in both versions, where he had, like, some weird shock collar.
Yeah.
In the first one, I think it was, like, a helmet or something that, like, controlled him telepathically.
It's dumber. And then, like, the shock collar makes sense in, like, Dragon Ball Super, because, you know, later on, they mentioned that, like, the Saiyans, before they were even conquered by Frieza, were conquerors who like took over planets and then sold them. So presumably they had slave collars so that they could sell slaves and stuff, you know? Yeah, so like, after that, we get to see a little bit of, like, when Planet Vegeta was destroyed by, Frieza and, like, Bardock sending Goku to Earth. And, that's when we cut to the current day, where, a lot has happened since that.
Oh, so much stuff. There were so many guys that were so big, and they fought so much.
Super Saiyans were attained. Yelling was done for many hours.
Power levels were surpassed.
And then surpassed again.
And then killed, and then surpassed again.
And then, like, a kid came up, and then he surpassed it.
Many wishes were made on many balls. A lot of people held a lot of balls.
Dragon Balls, in particular.
There's a big purple guy. Purple? Pink? I don't know. Named Jiren.
Yeah, so, cut to now, which takes place after the events of Dragon Ball Super, the Universe Tournament arc, where I'm not gonna get into that, but, like, basically, Frieza is trying to find the Dragon Balls, so Frieza's trying to get the Dragon Balls so that he's, like, 3 inches taller, so he can make himself 3 inches taller, which is really funny. Like, Dragon Ball Super Broly is full of, like, really funny moments. It's really good. And, like, he comes across, like, Broly and Paragus on, like, the hostile planet, and Paragus decides to join Frieza because he wants revenge on Vegeta. And Frieza also wants revenge, so he takes Broly and...
I would just say, yeah, like, I think for the most part, just imagine the original story, but made sense on a grander scale and actually involved, like, the story in the universe.
Yeah.
Instead of just being like
Broly is still
a weird DLC adventure.
Ridiculously powerful.
For some reason.
Like, crazy powerful. Like, he's going up against, like, Super Saiyan God.
And he's basically, instead of being, like, insane, he's got, like, anger management problems from, like, the stuff that happened when he was a baby and how he was raised on this desolate planet, which is much more of, like, an understandable character trait than, he's crazy.
Yeah. It's really good, because, like, his interactions with Chila and, what's his name? Lima, there we go. Are really nice, and it, like, really expands on what his character is, you know?
I could take it over.
Yeah.
It is kind of a weird story. It makes more sense when you're watching it. But the setup is the same. Well, the setup is similar. Instead of Broly becoming a Super Saiyan God type thing as a baby because for reasons and just like Goku screaming as a baby, which is completely normal, he's just very strong to the point where Vegeta's dad's like, no, he's unstable. Power levels that high in a child could, blah, blah, blah. He could be, bad news for all of us.
And he's stronger than my perfect boy.
My perfect boy. And yeah, he ships Broly off to some like random ass planet that can barely support life. His dad freaks out. And goes after him with some like tech guy, and they just barely escape the destruction of all the Saiyans. Time passes. His dad is kind of a dick and abuses him at least a little bit psychologically. But I mean, they're Saiyans, and for the most part, Saiyans aren't like super cool people, except for like Goku.
Generally not good parents either. Even Goku's not that good of a parent.
And Paragus is kind of
but Goku is a bad parent. Because he's dumb, not because he's abusive.
They really make that one shine in the old version where he it just doesn't care about his kid going to school and is just worried about how hungry he is. But in the modern version, Paragus is kind of a weakling, so he relies on his son to basically do all the heavy lifting and whenever monsters attack, blah, 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 blah. And on Earth...
I mean, he's pretty strong. It's just everyone has gone to very ridiculous points,
Yeah. And everything on Earth is super chill, but Frieza was recently revived, and as Goku and Vegeta are training for the eventuality that they're probably going to have to destroy Frieza again, they get some kind of warning.
I'm so mad that Frieza's still alive.
Yeah, they brought Frieza. Well, he died, but then they brought him back.
I know.
And
I'm so mad that they were like, what old character should we bring back and, up his power to match the Super Saiyan gods? I know, Frieza. Like, I'm just mad that was the decision they made.
I'm mad because the story doesn't make sense, but Frieza in this movie was actually a pretty amazing villain, and I don't know any other villain that would have played it as good. Movie.
I was just complaining about Dragon Ball Super, which I shouldn't do in this Dragon Ball Brawly discussion.
Yeah, but going back to the thing, they get alerted on Earth that some Dragon Balls were stolen, and this leads into the fact that Frieza has been stealing them. Chowder said he wants to be just slightly tall enough to the point where people are like, hey, did he get taller? But they're not outright sure that he did, because if he did, that means he did something about it. For the same reason that Bulma was like, oh, I just want to take 5 to 6 years off my face, not 10, because people, 5 years... people will be like, oh, she looks good. If I do 10 years, you're like, oh, she got work done. Long story short, Broly and Paragus eventually meet back up with Frieza because Frieza's been sending out a bunch of scouts trying to rebuild his army, and they kind of hit the jackpot with Broly because he has super high power level. And for whatever reason, Frieza's like, it's time to get on Earth, and it's time to get that last Dragon Ball because my plebs soldiers failed, and it's time to test out Broly. And then from there, it's pretty much just a bunch of fighting.
Lots of fighting, a lot of screaming.
Yeah, as Vegeta, and I will say the fight scene in this one is much better. In the old version, really, it's all Broly just tackling people and then throwing energy orbs and at one at a time. While this one, there's actual the typical high speed fighting that you would see in Dragon Ball Z, and you see Vegeta and Goku go through their various forms. At a certain point, they decide to do the form mixing or whatever when they
the fusion,
converge.
Yeah,
they do the fusion style.
Before that, I just wanted to talk about this. This is really cool shot where it's in first person point of view from Broly as he's driving Goku through a mountain, and it's just really cool.
The animation was great. So let me jump in here real quick. So Goku and Vegeta are like, let's fight this Brawly cat. Or does Vegeta fight him by himself first? No,
Vegeta fight him first. Yeah.
So they're like, let's fight him. And Vegeta's like, hey, he's pretty good, but not as good as me. I'm, going easy, And then Broly, starts to power up. And his, when he powers up, it's like a huge, crazy spike. So now they actually have to start fighting. Do they fusion after Paragus dies, right?
Yeah. Midway through the fight, Frieza kills Paragus to make Broly go Super Saiyan.
It's an amazing scene, actually, because it's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, these Saiyans need some kind of emotional motivator, and he just walks over and shoots Paragus in the chest. And he's like, oh, Broly, your father Paragus has perished in the crossfire. And then Broly just fucking goes insane. The short version is basically the same. They eventually beat Broly. Or Broly just basically wears himself out. He expends all of his energy. He's basically like the Hulk in a lot of terms, and he just fueled with emotional shittiness makes him stronger.
Yeah.
And they just kind of run him down to the point where he's at 0. And then I can't remember what they use. I think they use the Dragon Balls to
Chilai
take him back to his world.
Yeah. Chilai and Lima used the Dragon Balls to teleport Broly back to his world before he gets killed by Gogeta.
Because I think what they were trying to go for is even though I think they could outlive him just for the sheer fact that he was burning away his own energy to the point where he was going to exert himself to the point of death, I think is what they were kind of saying. His dad was like, oh yeah, he's very close to being spent. We need to stop this before, of course, he died, and then just fought Frieza for an hour. But but yeah, and then there's a kind of a sweet ending where Goku appears on the planet and try to I don't know, as a peaceable offering, brings them actual places to live and food. And
Yeah. Well, it's a huge departure. In the original, Goku punches Broly so hard in the chest that he explodes, and in this one, he brings him a nice lunch.
Yes.
Well, in the first one, Broly is also so two-dimensional that he just destroys an entire planet that the slaves come from because he saw them cry about the destruction that he was causing. So,
like, original Broly can be summed up his personality can be summed up in one word. Kakarot! Kakarot!
That's something, so I'm sure we'll get into this later, but since we are talking about how this was like a retcon or a reboot or a remake, whatever. I'm really glad they kept like the most important essential elements from the original. I think it's really important when you're remaking things. With this, clearly it's the screaming.
Yes, like Broly does a lot of screaming in this. And while new Broly is really interesting because he's got interests and like relationships with other characters, you know? He's very amicable with Goku. He wants revenge on Vegeta. He forms a friendship with Chilai and Lima. You can imagine, like, what he's doing in his free time when he's not doing shit. He is a character, and, the reason I wanted to talk about this was I just wanted to explore, like, how you can retcon something or rewrite something in a way that's better than the original.
Alright, what's up, nerds? My name is Edward Ryan, your Lord and Savior. And today I'm going to be talking about John Carpenter's The Thing. It's a film from 1984. I don't know if that's accurate. I just said 1984. I just said it. It just came out of my mouth. 1982. I lied. I'm a huge fucking liar. Starring Kurt Russell. The Thing by John from 1982 is a readaptation, let's say. It's like a remake of The Thing from Another World. Okay, so both films are based on the book Who Goes There by John Campbell. But the John Carpenter version, it's not like a sequel or anything to The Thing from Another World. You know, that's why I think readaptation is probably the best word for it. But what it does is you have the original film, which is about, the basic plot is researchers up in Antarctica discover an alien being frozen in the ice. And then they get it and they're like, oh, we got to study this. And then it thaws out and kills a bunch of people. In the John Carpenter film, the alien can transform, and it can transform into people. So it becomes this mystery of like who's the alien, who's a human, who's the alien. And they're trying to figure out how they can tell, and they're trying to kill the alien, and they're trying to not get killed by the alien. We also, so a bunch of people die, a lot of stuff happens. It's a great movie. Definitely recommend you watch it, especially if you love like practical special effects and shit. Beautiful. So you get this great ending to the movie where you have Keith David and
Kurt Russell, yeah.
Kurt Russell. A bunch of crazy shit's happen. Everyone's dead but them, and they're sitting there. And as an audience member, you don't know, if they're both human, if one of them's the alien, or if both of them are the alien and they think the other person's a human. Like that's
a great ending, man.
Yeah, but so the reason I want to talk about it, and we'll get into more specifics during the discussion, is that it improves upon a lot of stuff from the original make of the film. In a lot of areas. So, it's in certain ways more faithful to the source material, which is good. It also does, take some elements from that original film. And then there's just things that it is able to improve upon just because it was made in 1982 instead of 1951. So that's what I want to talk about today. and I hope I did an okay job.
Hello, everyone, again. It's me, Shadow Twin to Ryan Eddy, or Eddy Ryan.
Ryan, you have a great voice.
Thank you. I appreciate
Thank you.
My topic was Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones, as we know it right now, is an absolute smash hit. But when the series premiered on April 2011, few people knew at that point that what was shown, the pilot that was shown, was almost entirely reshot from the original. I think it's upwards of 90% of it was reshot. They even recasted people. When the showrunners D.B. Weiss and David Benioff previewed the original to test audiences, the overall reaction was, and I quote from like an article that came out recently, it was a piece of shit. They scrapped the original pilot. They scrapped the original pilot, and the original scripts were lost or destroyed. This lost episode has been mentioned by the showrunners and a lucky few like industry people, and of course people that were part of the original pilot know about it. A few years ago, it kind of leaked out online that the original pilot wasn't very good, like slowly but surely kind of seeped into the atmosphere. I think at a certain point, maybe 2-3 years ago, a faked script, a quote unquote fake. Nobody's sure if it's real or not. People, the cast and crew are staying mum on it for obvious reasons. They probably don't want to facilitate people shitting on the franchise. It showed, there's a kind of a new break in the case. A reporter, I forgot to write down his name, discovered that George R. R. Martin has been depositing his book drafts, original scripts, and like journals and stuff to his college library so they can be preserved for perpetuity and read by students so they can see, oh, like this very famous author, you know, this is how he evolved his writing. This is how he went from like draft A to draft B, the things he changed. It's a reason to kind of like he invests back into his college library. So when the reporter found out about it, he wondered if at some point he had put a draft copy of the original pilot, and it turned out he had.
Oh shit.
So it's kind of a mixed bag. It is actually much closer to the books, and I thought it was a very interesting thing because I thought it meshed well with what we were talking about this week. From all reports, the pacing was wrong, the characters felt awkward and stiff, and the story didn't make sense. And if that is not the original Dragon Ball that we watched, I don't know what is.
Welcome back to the show.
Indeed. So, let's discuss
this turd Dragon Ball Z movie. I don't understand why Broly could only just like one-arm tackle people for 25 minutes as they're all like talking about Ginsu beans and like, oh, let's take a Ginsu bean so we can just get
Sensu
fucking mauled.
bean, my dude.
Whatever. Ginsu knife, Sensu bean, same difference. They didn't do anything for the whole purpose of this story. I think the original made the worst. What was it? It's the cardinal sin of Dragon Ball Z. It was boring. You can't be Dragon Ball Z and boring. It just doesn't work because Dragon Ball Z just doesn't make sense for the most part. But it's cool, it's flashy, things are happening, there's heartfelt moments, it has a lot of high points that kids will watch, there's a lot of action, but this one had the plot of Dragon Ball Z, which is nonsense and boring. It
had the plot of Dragon Ball Z, and it had all the yamp talking in Dragon Ball Z. Because, like, in Dragon Ball Z, people will stand around going, oh, impossible! Oh!
Yeah,
for like
a lot of people seeing something and going, or ah, and then like the kind of gasp. There's a lot of that in Kingdom Hearts 3. It's becoming a pet peeve where like people look around and like look at something and go, ah, and then you're like, what the fuck?
So here's what I will say, right? You know, we can comment on the quality, and we have, and I'm sure we will continue to. But it clearly had an effect. I mean, I remember weird details about it.
No.
10 or so years later.
Like, that's the thing. Even to this day, I still like Broly. It's just, I can
through
acknowledge
this film.
Yeah,
I thought
he
the
became
character
a
was
popular enough character that we now have this much better remake of the film.
Yeah, no,
I knew of Broly, but I'd never seen this as a kid. I watched the original Dragon Ball, and then I watched Dragon Ball Z. I guess I somehow missed the Broly adventure. And I can say without a doubt that I may have liked him more as a kid, but now as a full-fledged adult watching it for the first time, I thought Broly was dumb. I thought he was the worst character ever. He's basically just a ripoff of the Hulk. They even made his energy beams green. Like, it just didn't make sense to me.
Like, again, to quote Dragon Ball Z Abridged, he's so dumb, but he's so cool. But he's so dumb, but he's so cool. That is old Broly. Like, he's a cool character, but like, yeah, no, there's not much substance to him, you know?
You know what the
he's just
thing
a
about
ripoff of the
Broly
Hulk.
is? He kind of, like, he is what a kid watching Dragon Ball Z at the time would have made as their own original Dragon Ball Z character.
Exactly.
Make his muscles like super big, and then like he used green instead of the other colors, and he just like punches everybody all the time, and he blows up a planet.
Stronger than even. Yeah, exactly.
And he's like 1,000,000 times stronger than Goku and Vegeta. That was me at 14.
I'm a little worried about how good of an impression that was.
Yeah.
I'm a little scared.
Yeah. Okay, so to my first question, there's a thing in philosophy called the ship of Theseus.
Holy shit.
I'm going somewhere with this.
Wait, what was it? It popped out a little bit when you said it. The shadow of what?
In philosophy, there's a thing called the ship of Theseus, which is a thought experiment that just posits you have a boat and it makes its journey. Every time the boat comes back, they have to replace one wooden board with a new wooden board, right? And this keeps happening until every part of the boat is made from a completely different wooden board. And the question becomes, is it still the same boat? If not, when did it become a different boat? So my question is, the new Broly and the old Broly are very different characters, and I want to ask, is the new Broly a totally new character? May as well be considered a totally new character, or an offshoot of the original character? And follow-up question, what about your domain? Is the new similar to the original, or is it just a new thing altogether?
So let me...
Eddie, I'll let you answer.
Wow, we were on exactly the same page. Let me take a stab at this one. First of all, my man Taeemul started off the discussion with, in philosophy, and I was taken aback because of what podcast we're recording. That said, let me answer this by immediately drawing a comparison to my domain. So in the original, not the original, but in the first film, The Thing from Another World, the alien is kind of this like plant monster. I think they describe it as like a living carrot at some point. It doesn't look like a carrot. It looks like it's kind of made of moss. But it's like a plant monster. And in John Carpenter's The Thing, it's a shape-shifting, grotesque being. So those are totally different characters. I think that Broly, in both versions, I think there are some core elements that remain. So I don't think all the parts of this particular ship have been replaced. I think just most of them have. And they've been replaced with upgrades. It's now a faster, more efficient ship. But it's still got, I think, some of the parts that make it the original ship. Just a better version of it. So they've got the fact that he is just ridiculously powerful, right?
Yeah,
I think even though that's not
And
really a personality trait. I think it's central to his character.
Yeah. And they get the idea that like he's like a berserker kind of character who like gets angry and like gets his power from that, which
yeah. And I think you can see that they kept that, but they refined it. So that's not so much a change as it is a refinement. Right. And then what they changed was that he has a personality and he's an empathetic figure and he's friends.
Actually a character now.
Yeah, he's actually a character. So,
Kakarot!
Exactly, Kakarot. Oh, that's kind of funny because Kakarot is like carrot, and and they called it a carrot, a living carrot. So
yeah, in the original version, before they remade it, Goku was in the thing as well, but they cut him out.
That's the other thing. Yeah, Goku was in the original thing from another world, but John Carpenter wasn't a big fan. So that's my answer to the question, and I would really love to hear Ryan's answer.
Oh, thank you, Shadow Twin. I think the only thing that carries through between the two versions of Dragon Ball Z is one, a name. There's a couple things. The name is the same, and the concept of ripping off the Hulk is the same. But that is it. I think they're completely different characters. I think it's a completely different premise. I think they kept honestly, if they had changed the names involved, it would have been a completely different. Like the major conceits of the plot, the reasons why Vegeta threw him out because he was going to be too powerful, I guess, in both, but almost every single piece of it was different in the parts.
Well, in the original, Vegeta tried to murder the baby, and in the remake, I guess he still tried to murder him. He set him off to a desolate planet.
I guess just more indirectly.
So I think there's like maybe a couple of plot points that are the same, but if you're dealing with the mixed bag that is Dragon Ball Z, a lot of plot points repeat. So you can't even necessarily blame it as, oh, this is a remake. Like, they could have done a complete whiteboard version of this one, like completely brand new, and used the usual stuff, and that's probably how it would have happened. I think it's completely different. I think it's a completely new ship. I think it's a much better ship. And how it relates to mine, I think there's... For mine, they use the same blueprint, but made it better. They're like, hey, I guess some of these like circles are supposed to be painted and not drilled in, you know?
I don't know if, based on the description you gave, I think your analogy's off. I don't think they used the same blueprint. I think they used a totally new blueprint and painted it the same colors.
I think they used a red print and then like made it blue.
I mean the ship. They painted the ship the same colors.
I think my analogy works because they're using the same blueprint. It's all pretty much off the book. The first season and the first episode in particular is actually very close to the book. Mm-hmm. And the only minor conceits they made were typically for easing the pace. Like, taking away the language of the White Walkers doesn't change anything, but it makes the scene more ominous and it makes it more scary. And there were some places where they deviated from the books in the original pilot. Cersei doesn't go down and burn a feather. The way I remember Caitlin Stark in the book is pretty similar to how she was in aired pilot. I think they were going up the same blueprint, but got a little in the corners on certain areas, and the pacing was off. And I think maybe they changed a few things, but they also kept a few parts. I just think they made the ship better the second time. It's basically the same ship, without seeing it, I can't know, because there was also a chance that the script that was shown or that they found wasn't the actual script that ended up hitting the test audience, being viewed to the test audiences. So there's no 100% way to say for sure. But yeah, I think for the most part, it's definitely a different ship. It's just they made the ship better the second time. It's supposed to be the same ship, just a different version.
Ship analogies aside, I like how Ryan and I basically said the same thing, but from two opposite perspectives.
Hey.
Like, we both said they kept the same details, but I was like, and that makes it the same. And he was like, and that makes it different.
Which is exactly the problem with the ship of Theseus.
Well, no.
So
my thing was
Taeemul, great philosophical construct to bring up. You're killing it as a host, and I'm not just trying to get brownie points for the award.
Thanks. So my next question. There's something interesting about Dragon Ball Super. In the original Dragon Ball Z movie, the main character is, Goku and friends. But in Dragon Ball Super, the protagonist is actually Broly. Like, everything is... most of the story is seen from his point of view. He's the one that has the character arc. And, so, like, when, say, Gogeta comes in and beats him, it doesn't feel like a Deus Ex Machina, because it's really a story about Broly, and there's a part of you that's kind of rooting for him, too. And it's interesting to me in that the way they reframed, by changing the frame of the story to center around Broly instead of Goku, is a big part of what lets that movie work. And I wanted to ask, like, what is the major change in your domain that you think really helps it be better than the original? Like,
Ryan, I think... Oh, sorry. My bad.
Nah, I'm pretty much done. I think what I was about to say was redundant anyways.
Okay, I was going to say, Ryan, I think you should go first, because you were so gracious to let me go first before.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. You're a gentleman and a scholar. I think the thing that make the biggest change, if I had to guess, in mine, without actually seeing it, because without seeing it, who knows, it's probably the characterizations. They made Caitlyn, they just changed up the characters a little bit in a better way. They changed, and so for some of them, they changed the actors, or the actress. So I think that's probably what had the most impact, was probably changing up the pacing of the scenes, knowing what didn't work so they could change the dialogue probably slightly, change some of the blocking for the scenes, and just kind of have a little new blood in there. I mean, potentially speaking, Caitlyn, the original Caitlyn Stark may have been a little bit boring, or a little, who knows what it was like. I'm sure that she did a great performance for the direction she was given, but something must have gone wrong. So I think the new blood and just looking at it with fresh eyes after seeing what didn't work was probably the big.
All right, Eddie.
Yeah. So for my domain, there were a ton of changes made. One that I will point out specifically is when the first film was made, The Thing from Another World, Hollywood was still under the Hays Code, which, for people who don't know, was kind of like a moral and ethics code in film, where like they couldn't
short skirts, no cool stuff.
They couldn't show certain, things, mostly, things that could be deemed sexual or violent, was a lot of it. And it was definitely like too overbearing, like Ryan said, like, oh, short skirts, were bad. And so the film, the original, I don't know necessarily if I would say it suffers from not being able to have things like that. But that the John Carpenter version definitely is elevated by being able to do whatever it wants. Because there is, like the alien transformation stuff. Like I said before, I describe it as grotesque. And that is not a negative in this context. Like it's bloody and gross and awesome. There's a lot of cool scenes where, there's, flamethrowers and machine guns, and a lot of crazy stuff happens in the movie that's very violent, and it really adds to the experience. Like it makes it feel like it is this like desperate struggle that these people are having against this alien. So I think that's one of the big changes. Though there are a ton of changes between the two versions, but I think that's one of the big ones, is just having a lot more freedom. Another one, though, would be just advancement in filmmaking technology, which I think relates well to Broly, with a point that Ryan brought up earlier about how the original one, was kind of boring and the fight scenes weren't as good. And granted, at the time, the people making Dragon Ball Z had the ability to make really good fight scenes and stuff, but
like
the way that they had to animate stuff,
the body model they made for Broly was only capable.
Like the conditions in which Dragon Ball Z was made were a lot harsher than the conditions in which Dragon Ball Super was made. So yeah,
exactly. So especially, I don't know exactly the ins and outs of how this film was made, but maybe they had to be rushed in some ways, because clearly it's not up to the quality level of the show. Whereas Super clearly is up to the quality level of the show.
It's actually better than the show, honestly.
Yeah. And so you can look at something like The Thing from Another World as compared to The Thing. Obviously the special effects and cinematography are a lot better. And so, yeah, there's the passage of time is also a big difference. So that's my answer. I'm great at ending sentences.
All right, this is gonna be the last question, but Ryan touched upon this, but like these remakes have the benefit of like looking back and like learning from the mistakes of the former, and I think it's just and it's just kind of interesting in that, I guess what I want to ask is it fair to compare new versus old when new has like the benefit of learning from the old? The old might have had to like do something new and thus unfamiliar.
I'll let Eddy take this one first.
Well, here's what I was going to say. So I went first and then you went first. So I think the only good way to do this is if we both answer at exactly the same time.
I don't know about what. Like answer at the same time or somehow sync up words.
No, I was just saying we just talk over each other, but we really shouldn't do that. It was a goof. Thought it would get a bigger laugh. That's my bad.
Okay. You know what? Let's just this.
Wait. No. There was a good question time. Well, we gotta answer it.
Okay. I do have an answer.
Go for it.
So I think it kind of reminds me of the saying, like, "There's nothing new under the sun." I don't think there was anything time could have, like, time wasn't. I don't think time period was a factor in why the original Dragon Ball was bad. I think it felt really rushed. I think they thought they had this amazing idea. Goku's finally going to meet his match, and it's going to require the efforts of everybody to bring it together. It
like
had
they
the
meet
making.
the legendary Super Saiyan.
Yeah, like
before there were like a million Super Saiyan forms, but yeah.
Yeah, it had the makings of a good story. Like, even the last little bit, if the pacing was better and it just wasn't people with their hands raised and like little teeny clowns coming off of them for like 5 minutes straight as Vegeta just strangely denies. Like, and it's in character for Vegeta to be like, "No, I will not give you my energy." But it just screws up the pacing of what they're trying to do so bad. You're just watching for 5 minutes as nothing is happening.
Yeah, but they also have a similar moment in Dragon Ball Super where like Vegeta, when like they bring up the plan to like fuse,
he doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to merge.
Yeah.
But that one is over in 10 seconds, but you get the same effect.
Yeah.
Like, you know that this has to have an end at some point. They're going to combine power and they're going to beat the bad guy. I just don't know why you have to fight me so hard before we get to that point. So I don't think the time period had anything to do with this. I think it was rushed in a lot of bad ways. I think the pacing was completely off. I think they just did a bad job. They could have done a good job. I mean, they could have done the exact same story that the new one had back then. There was nothing super alien about that story. I mean, I guess Frieza was dead at that point, but they could have come up with like villain X, Y, or Z. Instead of him being sane, he could have been another like weird species that has the same powers. Like, they have the entire universe to play with, and they decided to really constrain it to this weird place and then fight you on plot points, which I thought was really bad. Like I said, it made the worst crime that Dragon Ball Z can be, and it was boring.
Eddie, like you were going to say something?
Let me say, great answer.
Thank you.
But I'm gonna bring a different perspective to it, I think. So, I think what Taeemul was saying wasn't that, like, because Super Broly was made now, you know, that's why it was able to be better.
Well, I get that part. Like, the original phrasing of the question was like, the new one gets the benefit of seeing how the bad one failed, but what I'm trying to say is the bad one failed because it was bad. Like, the new one could, like, they could have not even seen the first movie and made a much better film if they just paid attention and tried, which I think is what they did. Like, I just don't know if it's the same, you can even put it in the same quadrant of that kind of thing, because the first one was just so bad, and it doesn't even, it's barely Dragon Ball Z.
So here's what I'll say to answer the question. I think that it is more than fair to compare new versions of things, you know, remakes, reboots, retcons, to the original. And the reason I think that is because, Ryan brought up that great quote, you know, there's nothing new under the sun. I mean, look at how many remakes and reboots and retcons there are, and most of them aren't good. So, you know, a lot of times, you know, these remakes and stuff are worse than the original, or at least most people consider them to be. Obviously, there's no consensus on anything, but so when you have something that most people agree is better, I think it's more than fair to make the comparison, because, you know, clearly there's a lot of, you know, people working in film and TV and animation and all that, you know, aren't learning from the mistakes of the past. So, you know, I think, you know, we can, I think we should, you know, praise the people who worked on Dragon Ball Super Broly, for making something that was not just good, but, you know, that took some ideas that people liked from, you know, what I think most people would agree with us is a bad film, taking some of those good ideas from there and turning them into a good film. So, yeah, that's my answer. I've ended all my answers by saying that's my answer. I don't know why.
That's my answer. You better be okay with it.
All right. Sorry, just looking up something real quick, but yeah, no, those are good answers, guys. And with that,
he wasn't listening to them.
No, I promise you, I was listening. I just I'm preparing for the next section.
I know.
All right. So with that, I think our discussion is over. We do not have any listener questions for this episode, but if you want to, you can reach us on Twitter or Facebook or wherever, and we will read your questions to us live on air whenever.
Not
live. Not live though, because this isn't a live podcast.
But definitely on air.
You never know.
Anyways, so let's move on to the ratings. Yeah.
Ratings music.
Word. Anyways, so here we are going to rate the topic, and for this episode, you are going to give 2 ratings. One for Dragon Ball Z, the legendary Super Saiyan, and one for Dragon Ball Super Broly. And you are going to rate them out of 5 hour-long scream sessions. So like it, 1 star is 1 hour-long scream session, 2 stars 2 hour-long scream sessions, and so on and so forth.
Just that for an hour. You did say scream sessions, right?
Yes.
Okay. Eddie, you go first.
Oh, is it me first? My bad. All right. Hey, how you doing, everybody? It's me, Eddie. I am gonna rate Dragon Ball. I'm rating Dragon Ball Super Broly. Yes.
You're
rating one and then the other.
One and then the other, yeah.
Oh, each of them. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'd give the original. I'm probably giving it an extra point here for nostalgia, and that's just gonna have to be dealt with.
I don't know if I can.
But it's nothing that can be done. So I'm gonna give the original. Oh, it's tough. It's tough.
Just kill it. Just murder it. Old
I
Yeller.
know. I'm gonna
just
all
put
right,
2 rounds in the back of this Old
I'm
Yeller
gonna give
skull.
it a 2.
Come on.
I'm gonna give it a 2 hour long screening session.
And for Dragon Ball Super,
I like the original, and it's got a great place in my memory. But it's not up to snuff. Dragon Ball Super Broly is a lot more up to snuff, a lot more enjoyable. I think it's not for everybody, but I think it is for every Dragon Ball Z fan. And so that said, I'm gonna give it a 4 hour long screening session.
don't pop a blood vessel now, Eddie.
I might just go Super Saiyan.
Impossible.
If you kill my father, it'll be a lot easier.
If Frieza just like so comedically just like shoots you in the gut, shoot your dad in the gut.
Oh no! Broly, your father has been shot by a stray shot! Oh no!
It's been killed in the crossfire! Oh no! I think, from nostalgia's sake, I'm probably gonna add 1 star on top of what I truly believe it should get.
Oh wow.
And you know what the original is going to get? 1 star. It deserves no stars, but I'm giving it 1 because it's old and it's dead. And it's bad to speak completely ill of the dead. No, but in all seriousness, it's 1 out of 5. I did not enjoy it at all. I thought it was really slow. I thought it was plotting. I thought it was boring.
Tell us how you really feel.
Yeah, I was pretty pissed that I watched it, and then I also did this at like 10 o'clock at night, watched it until like 11:30, and then immediately watched the new one so I would have it fresh in my head. So I was up till like 12:31 watching this shit. I have never been more angry at something and then more relieved at something when I saw the second one. The newer one, Broly Super, it's like everything you kind of want from Dragon Ball. It's got its cute moments, it's got its fun moments, it's got like really good fights. You have the characters not really taking themselves super seriously in some scenes, and then the next scene they're taking themselves super seriously. It's everything you want in a Dragon Ball.
Super seriously.
Yeah. It's everything you want in a Dragon Ball. It's like a condensed season of a show down into an hour and 30 minutes or whatever it is. I think it's an hour and 20. I thought it was great. I'm going to say 4.5 screaming session out of 5.
Okay. And finally, I'm going to award one of these 2 people a gold star for contributing to the conversation the best. And for this episode, the gold star is going to be the gold...
Kakarot!
It's going to be the golden background singer, because throughout the Dragon Ball Super movie, there was like music where like some guy in the background was like screaming people's name in the most hype way possible, like Kakarot!
That's funny. That's really funny.
Go
but
Vegeta!
Can I make...
Go Vegeta! Go the Broly! Go the Broly! It was awesome.
There's one thing that I think you should also consider, is that in the original one, when Frieza destroys the planet, they're still on the planet, and then when Paragus is describing what's happening, he's like, for whatever reason, Broly's baby form became enveloped with energy and saved us. And then it shows a picture of him holding onto a baby enclosed in this like green sphere of energy, just like floating off into space. So my option to give to you is the Paragus holding on to a naked baby floating off into space award.
You know what? I like that so much better. Yeah, sure. The golden Paragus holding on to a baby Broly going off into space award. That is
what is be a lot easier for Jeff to put on.
Yeah, okay. That. But in the background, someone's going, go, the Broly! Go, the Broly!
Yeah, I remember watching that, and I want to say Paragus too at a certain point is like, what is happening? It's like he's just floating off into space. That was the high point of the movie. It's the only part that I enjoyed.
Tell us how you really feel.
I have been. I'm not left anything. I'm not holding anything back. I am Gogeta in red whatever form, Dragon Ball Z Extra.
So you both put up a good fight, but in the end, in this bloody affair, the winner has to be Ryan.
Hey!
Yeah.
Oh my God. Finally, the Broly character wins.
Super Saiyan status.
The legendary Super Saiyan. But that's just a myth.
The thing about it is, I think if he had some kind of stab wound in his chest, I could have punched him there and won the gold star. But
you just couldn't make him explode. No.
I wasn't stabbed as a baby, so it made exploding my body through punches much more difficult. Baby,
and that's why I was not able to pull out the victory.
As a naked baby, my father grabbed onto me and we just floated off into space away from you before you could punch me in the gut.
Go, the Eddy! Go, the Ryan! Go!
Oh my God.
Alright.
Ryan, do you want to give an acceptance speech or something?
Oh, I want to thank you guys for being here with me tonight. I want to thank you, Eddy, for coming back to the program. My shadow twin is back. Together we can go from a nobody and a heartless to somebody. I also hated that reference. That's also in Kingdom Hearts 3. I went from being a nobody to a somebody.
That's fuck? Straight up Bane from the Dark Knight Rises shit. Nobody cared about me until I put on the mask.
You think the darkness is your ally?
I was born in the darkness. I did not see light until I was a man.
Oh my God, that is a very Kingdom Hearts speech. Like, that wouldn't fit in Kingdom Hearts. Oh God.
I'm calling it now, Bane in Kingdom Hearts 4.
But yeah, I want to thank you guys for being there. Eddy, you put up a really strong fight. I just want to thank Paragus for holding on to a naked baby after it was stabbed by a king. You know, that whole plot point made so much sense. I want to thank Broly for just elbow fucking grabbing people for 45 minutes that made me realize. Honestly, if I had just watched DBZ Super on its own, it probably would be like a 3.5 to a 4, but having the palate cleanser of something so awful beforehand, I think really inspired me to bring my A game to this, and to really, I wanted to vent to somebody about how terrible this was.
Alright, before we move on to the outro, we have a raffle to do. For the winner of the Cycle 12 raffle, and winner gets to choose the topic for the first episode in the next cycle. The winner of that is...
Oh, I hope it's me.
Let's roll that dice.
I didn't enter, so it can't be me.
Because these raffles are for listener engagement.
I think I was probably a listener when the raffle started.
Listener engagement, in that in that by commenting or retweeting us on Twitter or Facebook, you can enter this raffle and decide on a topic for another episode. So, with that, without further ado, the winner is already predetermined and the dice was unnecessary. Riley Barnes, you win! Yeah! Come on down and get your prize, Riley.
No, there is one stipulation. Actually, just so you know, you can't pick Dragon Ball Z Broly the Legendary Super Saiyan as the topic.
Yeah, I suppose
he could just pick Paragus though, just as the character to talk about, or Broly as a character to talk about. He can sneak.
You know what
there.
the best?
I'm
thing
assuming
about
this is a he, or am I just making a broad assumption?
Anyways, Riley, you get to decide on the topic for episode. I will insert whatever it is when I figure out what episode it is later. Anyways, that about wraps it up. Thank you for listening to the Common Geeking Program. I'm your host, Taeemul Chowdhury, or Chowder. You can find me at Taeemul Chowdhury on Twitter. You can see how that's spelled in the description. Again, I've been joined by Representatives Eddy Ryan and Ryan Mossbarger. Do you have any links you want to link to?
You can find me. This is Ryan Mossbarger. You can find me on Twitter at Ryan_MOSSB. You can also find me in your dreams, the really bad ones, but where you're somewhat like lucid, and then you find out you can fly. When you look behind you, I'm flying with you. Hello.
And I'm Edward Ryan, and you can find me staring at Google Images for the next fucking year at pictures of Bio Broly. Oh my god.
Anyways, the next episode is going to be hosted by Ryan, and what are you doing, man?
So I think I decided I am a big fan of terrible movies, and I still have to talk to the people a little bit more to make sure they want to do it. But we are going to review, hopefully together, a classic movie called Never Too Young to Die. And the focus of the movie, it was a movie that was obviously set up to be a franchise. The whole theme is it's basically like young James Bond or whatever.
So you're telling me the franchise died young?
It did. But it's an insane movie. It has John Stamos before he blew up and got on, before he really blew up. I think it was when he's still doing his, early days of acting. It has Gene Simmons in it, one of his first acting roles, and it is buck wild fucking insane. And there was no way at any point this was ever going to become a series of movies because it was too fucking crazy. So it's an insanely bad movie, but it's also an insanely good movie because it's so bad. And we're going to review it and kind of discuss other kind of failed franchises and maybe what stopped them from being franchises, or and maybe some of the things we talk about, maybe they deserve to be franchises.
Yeah, you can catch Ryan's episode on
2 weeks from when this airs.
2 weeks from when this airs, which is March 29. Yes.
I wasn't talking to you, Chowder. I was talking to the listener. Yeah, I'm talking to you, listener. Why don't you look at a calendar every once in a while?
Yeah. Anyways, thank you for listening. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe. We have a Patreon now, don't we? Right? So
there was mention of it.
Yeah. So if you think we're worth it, maybe throw in $1 on Patreon. Help us keep the lights on a single $1.
And if you think $1 is worth it, what's 2? And if you're going to give us 2, what's 3?
And what's 3? Why not just give us your entire paycheck, please?
You're giving us all your money, and we're going to make a cult where you're going to have to listen to these episodes on repeat.
Oh wow!
And then we're going to become Aum Shinrikyo of the West, and then we're going to get an attack helicopter and try to do something.
Yeah. Or don't. Your enjoyment of our podcast is more than enough. So be sure to tune in next time. Ciao. This episode of the Common Geeking Program was hosted by Taeemul Chowdhury, joined by Eddy Ryan and Ryan Mossbarger. This episode is sponsored by Technical Difficulties, the most technical of difficulties. The podcast is created and produced by Colin, Ketchen, and Jeff Leavitt. This episode edited by me, Taeemul Chowdhury, and Matt Canavan, and original music by Colin Ketchen. We'd love for you to stay and engage with us at Geeking Program or #CGP. Reviews on Apple Podcasts are also helpful for growing the show, and we'll read new reviews on the air. If you want to know more about us, head to CommonGeekingProgram.com. Stay in touch, stay tuned. Thank you for listening to this podcast. Ciao!